Welcome to Judah United Ministries, our very first study blog here on the Moonie Music and Judah United channel. I'm Moonie Music. This is my beautiful wife,
Mrs. Moonie.
And we are going to be diving into the Word together today, encouraging just kingdom advancement and kingdom building today. So it's very, 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 very pleased to be used today, and we're thankful to be here. We're going to be talking about um, some things that we have been studying lately that has to deal with just trends that we see in our society um, that are nothing new. We know that the Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. Um, and a lot of the things that we're starting to see play out in our society is actually fulfilled prophecy um, in the Word, and we're seeing it play out. It's markers to let us know the times we're in, the days we're in, and those different things. And one of the things we're going to be talking about today is just the different makeups and where it originated from in the Word and those different things.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to be starting in the Book of Enoch, and the first topic is the sorceries of makeup. If you notice, we've seen it take so many different turns in our lifetime. Um, just the shifts between, celebrities in our time got a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for?
I would say if you can look back through time, especially like the early '90s, like women were more natural. Or the early, the early to late '90s, going into 2000, you had people like Aaliyah and things of that nature, and they were fairly natural and simple. And then as we started to advance into the millennium, it was just like music became super extravagant. And you think of people like Nicki Minaj, where these super voluptuous eyelashes, and then all the drawing in the eyebrows, and then the Egyptian cat eye with the eyeliner. And it's just like, as time has progressed, things have just got more and more. Like, literally, I've said it to friends, like, that sorcery, it looks like a totally different person. She doesn't look her authentic natural self when she puts on that makeup, like a porcelain doll. Like, everything's like it's painted on and it's plastic. Like, the makeup does not look natural anymore. Like, I know females that will not go out the house without their lashes being done, or I've had friends that wouldn't even get on like FaceTime or Skype till they put on makeup. It's just become this thing where women don't feel comfortable in their own skin. They have to have on a ton of makeup to go out, to get on Instagram, to post a picture. Like, everyone has to be dolled up. And so it's just something that we've noticed. Just, I mean, like my husband said, dang, her lashes came through the door before she did. And it is, because I look, I'm like, how can you see? But times have changed. We've went from where, things are a lot more modest to things are a lot. We live in a time where everything's over sexualized, and so when you get to the word, Yahweh called, especially women, called us to be modest, and we can go back and forth about that for days, and everyone has their opinion about it, but at the end of the day, if you say that you're a believer, and your ultimate goal in life is to serve Yahweh and to be obedient, and he has called his women to be modest. If you want to be a Proverbs 31 woman, and you're modest.
You said something that was so key over sexualization.
Yeah.
And that's what we're gonna be doing when we get to die. We're not, this is just us talking. We're gonna go to what the word says, and we're gonna be diving into some different things that we have been studying lately. that made the Father make us choose this as one of the first topics. And what she said is the over sexualization in our society. It has a root. It has a history biblically, and it also kind of tells us where we are prophetically. And I think that's very important for us to know, especially those of us who are believers. We're supposed to be in the world, but not of it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really tell nowadays.
Yeah, most believers are just like the world. Like you'll see pastors and first ladies, and first lady dress just like the video vixen.
The trends. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
the celebrities are setting the trends.
Yeah, and we follow. No one's authentic anymore. Everyone looks like everyone else.
Exactly. Okay, so getting into the word, we're gonna be starting with the Book of Enoch, and if you follow this ministry, you know that we have went deep into the history of why certain books were taken out of the Bible. In the original 1611 King James, you did have the Apocrypha. Matter of fact, look at wifey, she ain't playing, she pulled it up.
This is the original.
Yes.
The 1611 version written in Old English with the Apocrypha still in it.
Exactly.
So it was in there, but it was taken out a little over 400 years ago. Exactly. And so you have to ask yourself, why?
Yes, and like I said, if you follow this ministry, Satan's Devices 1, 2, or 3 on the Judah United channel will definitely catch you up to speed with all of the reasons why it was taken out. These books specifically tell certain things that, like we said, when we dive into this is going to clearly point to prophecies. When Yahshua said it will be as the days of Noah, we're about to read in the Book of Enoch that's actually capturing what took place in the days of Noah and why Yahshua said it would be as the days of Noah in the end. So we're going to be coming from in the Apocrypha, and if you don't have an Apocrypha, I suggest you pull it up. This is a really great version. Oh, I'm actually quoted it. Yes.
Get it from Amazon, probably about $20-ish, $25.
Yes, this is a really good version. Great version to read. It just the Apocrypha books like Jasher, which we'll be reading for Second Ezra, they go so in depth into a lot of stories that are in the Bible, but it goes more into depth to what was going on and what was taking place. It gives you a better understanding. Then when you learn that a lot of what we learned came from Rome or Edom or Esau, you'll find out that these books show you who those people are today. And that was one of the reasons why those people who were controlling what believers were learning took those books out. So we're going to be starting the Book of Enoch, chapter 8, verse 8, verses 1 and 2. And I'll let my wife read 1 and I'll read 2.
And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And Azazel is basically, he was an angel, and he fell. So he was one of the fallen angels. His name is Azazel.
Yes, when you read in the Bible, Genesis 6, where it says, and the sons of God came down and took wives with the daughters of men, this is what it's talking about. The Book of Enoch goes in depth in it. And it says, I'll tell you something slick about Azazel. There was a movie called Fallen by Denzel. If you've ever seen that movie, it was an early 90s movie. The movie is called Fallen, and it's starring Denzel Washington. And the whole time, this angel or this demon is shape-shifting into different people. And it's a serial killer, but it's actually a demon that he's chasing, and he finds it out. And he goes and looks up these books from this old detective, and he finds out that he's chasing the demon Azazel. So a lot of this truth has been dangled in our face multiple times through Hollywood. If you are a comic book follower and you follow X-Men, you know that Nightcrawler's dad was Azazel.
Wikipedia. Even Wikipedia tell you.
Yes, even the shape shifting Mystique. I think it was either she had a baby with Azazel or she. But if you look this up, this stuff has been dangled in so much of the stuff that we watch on an everyday basis, and we don't even understand what we've been watching because things like this book have been taken out, and you never really knew what you were even watching, that it was actual sufficient. So, verse 2, and just the beautifying of the eyelids and all kinds of costly stones and all coloring tinctures. This is talking about makeup. It says that the fallen angels, it says taught the working and bracelets and ornaments and the use of anatomy and the beautifying of the eyelids and all kinds of costly stones and coloring tinctures. And it says, and there arose, verse 2, much godlessness, and they committed fornication. So this goes back to what my wife pointed out, the over sexualization of our society now. And when you see that this happened in the days of Noah. In the days of Noah, when the fallen angels, Genesis 6 did what they did, why God destroyed the earth with the flood, you find out not only did they produce the seed called the Nephilim, or the giants, or the gigantos, which were the sons of the fallen angels, they also taught us, it says, the beautifying of the eyelids, the works of metal. So this is where you get swords. They taught us how to war. Anatomy. And if you read on through, it actually talks about astrology and all of these things that we are into. Enchantment, sage, all of these things that are becoming super more popular. Or it's not nothing new, but all of a sudden we're seeing a surge in our time. And this is because prophetically, when Yeshua said, or who you may call Jesus, we use the Hebrew name, Yeshua, Yahawashai, Yahusha, HaMashiach, said that it will be as the days of Noah. And when we begin to look into this, the beautifying of the eyelids were popular in all polytheistic societies. And Egypt was one of the main ones. And that's why you see the Egyptian eyelids when you look at the artists now, and the women and the rest of our women are following the trend.
That's the eyeliner that curves the cat eyes.
Yes.
It's the Egyptian look, because give it that slanted cat eye, Asian type look to your eye.
And this is where it started. In the days of Noah, when the fallen angels came down, men and women did not know how to do these things before the fallen angels came and taught. So let's listen to verse 2 one more time before we move on. It says, and there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. The over-sexualization of our society, we've been seeing this go on for some time now, but it is starting to intensify. Literally, I remember as a kid looking at certain Playboy magazines, and we knew that was bad. We knew that was dirty. But now a kid can scroll down Instagram and see far more than what he would have seen in a Playboy magazine. And it's normal. And the thing, like we talked about it before, that in the church, we're supposed to be in it but not of it. But you can literally go on believers or confessed believers pages and see these sexualized pictures just the same. There's no peculiarity between us and the world anymore. So a story we were studying, and we were studying in the book of Jasher, because we've studied for years, for most of us, for all of lives, we've studied the Bible when they took out the book. So we've been doing that way. We've been doing some real intense study on the Apocrypha and lining those up with the Word. And when you read the story of Joseph, those who may not know, Joseph was the son of Jacob. You know, you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph, the story of Joseph, it goes into so much deep detail in the book of Jasher. It's I think it's 44, 45. It's where I started reading chapter 44, 44. The story of Joseph. When you read it from the book of Jasher, it goes into even more detail. I mean, it goes into this intense Zelicus Zelicus pursuit of Joseph. The Bible talks about it in the books that we have in most Bible now, the 66 books that they shut it down. But but when you look into the book of Jasher, it goes into greater detail of what Joseph was actually going through. And before we go into let's read that first. And we're gonna point out the type of woman Zelicus was. This was the wife of Potiphar.
It started 15, well, 14.
Okay, go ahead.
It says, and Joseph was 18 years old, a youth with beautiful eyes and a very comely appearance, and like unto him, and was not into the whole land of Egypt. So basically, no one in Egypt looked like him. At that time, while he was in his master's house, going in and out of the house.
As handsome as him.
Yes.
All of the people in Egypt were dark-skinned people, including Joseph.
And as he was going in and out of his master's house and attending his master, Zelica, his master's wife, lifted up her eyes toward Joseph, and she looked at him, and behold, he was a youth, comely and well favored, and she coveted his beauty in her heart. She lusted for him, she desired him, and her soul was fixed upon Joseph. I feel like that's powerful.
Yeah,
and her soul was fixed upon him, like she had to have him. And she enticed him day after day. And Zelica persuaded Joseph daily, but Joseph did not lift up his eyes to behold his master's wife. And Zelica said to him, how goodly are your appearance and form. Truly I have looked at all the slaves, and have not seen so beautiful a slave as you are. And Joseph said unto her, surely he who created me in my mother's womb created all mankind. And she said unto him, how beautiful are your eyes, and which you have dazzled all the inhabitants of Egypt, men and women. And he said unto her, how beautiful they are while we are alive, but should you behold them in the grave, surely you will move away from them. And she said unto him, how beautiful and pleasing are your words. Take now, I pray you, the harp which is in the house, and play with your hands, and let us hear your words. And he said unto her, how beautiful and pleasing are my words when I speak the praise of my God and his glory. And she said unto him, how very beautiful is the hair of your head. Behold, the golden comb which is in the house. Take it, I pray you, and curl the hair of your head. And he said unto her, how long will you speak these words? Cease to utter these words to me, and rise and attend to your domestic affairs. And she said unto him, there is no one in my house, and there is nothing to attend to but your words and to your wish. Yet notwithstanding all this, she could not bring Joseph unto her, neither did he place his eye upon her, but directed his eyes below to the ground.
Pause right there for a second. It says that Joseph would not even look at her. And this was because of Joseph's upbringing. He was brought up to follow the Lord. He was brought up in the ways of the Lord. He was taught the ways of Yahweh. He was taught the ways of Elohim, Adonai, by his father Jacob. It's funny, when I was reading this, when I was studying this to myself, I remember a time more recent, when the shops were still open, and I was at the shop, and there was a young lady had came, and this happened kind of a few times, but I made it apparent to show or to resemble what a kingdom man should be and how a kingdom man should be. So when the other guys were looking at this woman and, you know, making little remarks, I mean, even married guys making these remarks, I would not even put my eyes on her. And it was the Holy Spirit, it was the Spirit of the Most High, that was guiding me to be an example, to be different. Not that I even wanted to look, because at this point in my relationship with the Most High, that's not what we do. We don't look and we don't lust. Jesus said, if you look at her with lust in your heart, then you've already committed adultery. You don't have to actually physically do it, because you committed adultery in your heart. You're looking at this woman and you're lusting for her in your heart. And when I studied this, the Father showed me how when you have a true relationship with Him, you'll be like I was and like Joseph was. We're looking at the floor, or we're looking over here. I'm not even going to look. I'm not even looking. The moment I notice that and see, I could tell by my first glance to the woman, the spirit on the woman. You came to the barbershop where you know there's a whole bunch of men with seductive clothing and seductive attire. You're thirst trapping. And we're going to show how in the word, really, this leads us to deeper demons, devils, and life troubles. But yet, if we just stick to the principles of the word and what the word tells us, then we won't be able to be led into those things. And Joseph, it was his discipline and his relationship with Elohim to where he was such a man that I'm not even looking at my master's wife. She is doing all this tempting, and it said the word is telling you he was only looking at the ground. He would not even look at her.
And Zelica desired Joseph in her heart that he should lie with her. And at the time that Joseph was sitting in the house doing his work, Zelica came and sat before him, and she enticed him daily with her discourse to lie with her, to have sex for her, or even to look at her. But Joseph would not hearken to her. And she said to him, if you will not do according to my words, I will chastise you with the punishment of death and put an iron yoke upon you. And Joseph said unto her, surely Yahweh who created me loosens the fetters of prisoners, and it is he who will deliver me from your prison and from your judgment. And when she could not prevail over him to persuade him, and her soul being still fixed upon him, her desire threw her into a grievous sickness.
Pause right there. It says, so this woman had such a spirit to corrupt this man and to entice this man to sin. This spirit of lust was so strong that it made her sick that she could not have him. This isn't normal, guy. And this is a married woman. This is a married woman. This stuff still goes on to this day. It's just that we're in a society now where 98% of men are looking. Not how many 98% of these men they fell already. Soon as she threw the ball, and you know she was an attractive woman. Potiphar was in such a high rank in Egypt that you knew his wife was beautiful. She was a Hamite, so she probably had beautiful dark skin, beautiful shape, beautiful figure, a beautiful Egyptian woman. But Joseph was sold out for Elohim. He was sold out. Like, literally, this is what it means: put God first in everything and live your life according to his will and his ways. That's who Joseph was.
We kind of fast forward. She basically had a banquet and invited these women.
Oh yeah, when they were cutting themselves.
Yeah, and they got so caught up in his beauty when they were cutting food that they didn't realize that they had cut their hands, and their hands were filled with blood because they got so mesmerized when Joseph walked in the room that they cut their hands instead of the food.
Which this is telling you how that Joseph probably looked like me. Nah, just Joseph was a handsome man. He was a handsome Hebrew,
Yeah.
Negroid, because Shemites are Negroes. He was a handsome Negroid man, young 18-year-old man.
It says basically they continued to look at the beauty of Joseph and did not turn their eyelids from him. And Zelica said what they had done, and she said unto them, what is this work that you have done? Behold, I gave you centurions to eat, and you have all cut your hands. And all the women saw their hands, and behold, they were full of blood, and their blood flowed down upon their garments. And they said unto her, this slave in your house has overcome us, and we cannot turn our eyelids from him on account of his beauty. And she said unto them, surely this happened to you in the moment you looked at him, and you cannot contain yourselves from him. How then can I refrain when he is constantly in my house, and I see him day after day going in and out of my house? How then can I keep from declining or even from perishing on account of this? And they basically agreed with what she said.
Yeah, if you when you read this, you'll find out that her friends were much like what we see on Housewives of these different shows and these different worldly views, where they were basically telling her like, yeah, get you some of that slave. Mm-hmm. That's your slave. Go lay with him. Mm-hmm. This is the society this is what our society has become, where instead of us pushing and encouraging each other to hold the standards of the word and live by the word, it's like, oh, do what you feel.
Like this one said, and all the women and her friends came daily to see her, and they spoke to her and said unto them, this could only be through the love of Joseph. Basically, she got to a point where her health declined so badly. She became so ill because she claimed she was desperately lovesick on account of him. And nobody knew what was the matter with her, but her friends knew. And they basically said this could only be through the love of Joseph. And they said unto her, entice him and seize him secretly. Perhaps he may hearken to you and put off this death from you. So she was almost at a point of dying from being lovesick. So they're encouraging her to entice him to sleep with her so that she will no longer be sick and her health will return.
Exactly. How many of us at some point have felt this way about somebody that we didn't even know? But just the appearance. I remember being a younger man, there was a couple, we call it crushes. You have a crush so hard, but you really don't even know this person. You just see them and you're lust for their appearance, but you really don't even notice this person. You don't know anything about that person other than what they appear to be, what they appear to look like. How many people have had these type of feelings about celebrities who they've never even met? I'm so in love.
He's so fine, girl.
Like how they do at concerts where they throwing their draws on stage. If you would throw your draws on stage, then we already know what you would do if you were given the opportunity. But you don't even know this person. But you're so drunk in lust. This is what this is.
Yep. Then it goes on and on. So she's daily trying to entice him, telling him that he shouldn't be afraid of his master. He's not listening to her. And then there's this big festival that happens, and everybody's gone. It's just him and her in the house, and it says, she rose up and ascended to her temple in the house and dressed herself in princely garments. And she placed upon her head precious stones of onyx, stones inlaid with silver and gold. And she beautified her face and skin with all sorts of women's purifying liquids. And she perfumed the temple and the house with cassia and frankincense.
Go back one more time from beautified. Now, what did we just read in the Book of Enoch that the fallen angels taught?
So she placed upon her head precious stones, and then she beautified her face and skin with all sorts of women's purifying liquids, and she perfumed the temple. And then she sat in the entrance of the temple and the passage of the house through which Joseph had to pass through to do his work. And as he was coming in from the field, he entered the house to do his master's work, and basically she was sitting there. And Zelica saw Joseph turning. So he saw her and then basically went to go the other way. Yeah. And she saw him turning away, and she called out to him, saying, What ails you, Joseph? Come to your work, and behold, I will make room for you until you will have passed to your seat. And Joseph returned and came to the house and passed from there to the place of his seat. And he sat down and do his master's work as usual. And behold, Zelicah came to him and stood before him in princely garments, and the scent from her clothes was spread to a distance. And then she hastened and caught a hold of Joseph in his garments, and she said unto him, As the king lives, if you will not perform my request, you will die this day. And she hastened and stretched out her other hand, drew a sword from beneath her garments, and she placed it upon Joseph's neck. And she said, Rise and perform my request, and if not, you will die this day.
But this is a person that says she is madly in love with you. You're in love with me, but you just pulled a knife out on me.
The same as women that be with men and say they're madly in love with them, but then he want to choke you. Or he want to hit you,
or women, like we said, women that you cut the man and you doing all the, you hit him with the car, you ran him over, or all of this crazy. You lied on him and tried to get him locked up, but you swear you madly in love with him. That is not love. That is demonic. See, this is a evil spirit on this woman that the enemy is using through her lust to press on Joseph. Mm-hmm. And this woman, and Joseph is passing the test with flying colors. And I want you to understand what happens here, because later on we're going to be talking about Romans 8:8 and how that's a lifestyle, and how it's something you have to wake up with every day, understanding that all things work towards my good, even things that don't look like they're good. Because Joseph does everything right here. But according to how things play out, based on the way we look at things in the world, how much of us would have been able to, how many of us in our today's society would have been able to keep the faith and stay so faithful to God on account of the events that are going to play out in Joseph's life?
And it basically just goes on. So she grabs him, and then he's very afraid of her, and so he rises up and flees. And then she sees the front of his garment, and in terror, when he's running away, she tears his garment, and he leaves it in her hand. So then it basically says that she acted cunningly, and basically got the garments.
Yeah, she changed her clothes.
Yeah.
Because remember, she had on all the seductive stuff.
Yeah.
And so when Joseph took out running, she was like, well, maybe he'll tell what I've done. So instead of, let me spin it real quick. So she went and switched her clothes, made herself look like all sickly how she was before, and took the piece of his clothing that she had. And when they came, she called for the people. When they came, she said, oh,
see what a Hebrew your master has brought to me in the house, for he came this day to lie with me.
And she basically says Joseph raped her, or tried to rape her, and she screamed, and he got scared from her screaming and took off running.
Mm-hmm. So then he came home enraged. His wife is crying. Why did you bring this Hebrew into my home? For he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus did he do unto me this day. So he heard his words. He ordered Joseph to be punished with 7 stripes. So they did so. And it was interesting. It just shows how amazing the Most High is. That while they were beating him, Joseph called out with a loud voice and lifted up his eyes to heaven. He said, "Oh Lord God, you know that I'm innocent of all these things. And why will I die this day through falsehood by the hand of these uncircumcised, wicked men whom you know?" And while Potiphar's men were beating Joseph, he continued to cry out and weep. And there was a child there, 11 months old. And Yahweh opened the mouth of the child.
11 months old.
And he spoke these words before Potiphar's men who were smiting Joseph, saying, "What do you want of this man? Why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speaks falsely and utters lies." Thus was the transaction. And the child told them accurately all that happened, and all the words of Zelicah to Joseph. Day after day did he declare unto them. And all the men heard the words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words. And the child ceased to speak and became still.
Wow. This is how amazingly powerful the Most High is and how he'll go to bat for his people, especially when we cry out to him. Joseph began to cry out, and the father opened her own child's mouth. A baby. He's not even a year old. He's still Googling and gaga. Okay. And he can't, and all of a sudden he's holding on a full conversation. And when you study the Book of Jasher, it goes on. It's just like in I believe it was in Genesis where it talked about the donkey speaking. God allowing the donkey speaking. A few chapters before this, a wolf talks. God allows the wolf to talk to Jacob. And then in this situation, Elohim allows a 11-month-old child to speak the truth on Jacob's behalf. This is powerful. Go ahead.
And then it goes on. So basically, Joseph tells Potiphar that he is innocent. So then they are trying to figure out what his judgment should be. So they basically send for some judges. And the judges said that if the tear is in the front of the garment, then his face must have been opposite to her. So she must have caught hold of him to come to her. And with deceit did your wife do all that she has spoken. And when they brought the garments, Joseph's garments, before the priests who were judges, they saw and behold the terrors in the front of Joseph. And all the judge and priests knew that she had pressed him. And they said, the judgment of death is not due for this slave, for he has done nothing. But his judgment is that he be placed in the prison house on account of the report which through him has gone out against your wife. So
pause right there for 1 second. You can do everything right. The truth come out. And they're still sending him to prison.
He had to go to prison for 12 years.
Say it one more time, babe.
He went to prison for 12 years, even though they knew he was innocent, but for the simple fact that the queen had accused him of something, he had to be judged.
12 years.
Yeah.
How many of you in such a selfish society that we live in, where everything is consumed about ourselves, would be sold out for the Most High? At what year would you have started blaming Elohim? Would you have started saying, how could you allow this to happen to me? Mm-hmm. Would it have took even a year for some of us? Or the moment they sent you to the prison, would you have been ready to fold and throw in the towel? I'm doing everything right and nothing, and still, this is what happens to me. At what moment? This is the type of relationship we should have with Elohim, because Joseph understood, no matter what happens to me, all things are working towards the good of those who serve him. I know I can't see it, can't feel it, can't taste it, but somehow, some way, if you allowed it, it's gotta work towards my good. It's gotta have a greater purpose. It's gotta have a greater moment. It's something that you up to, but I don't have to see it because I trust you. I don't have to see it because I love you. I don't have to see it because I know that it's your will that I live for. And this is who Joseph was. And I want you to see that this woman is still pursuing Joseph. And Joseph's response is still sold out for the Lord. Read, babe.
Then it said, at the end of 3 months, Zelicah continued going to Joseph to the house of confinement day by day, and she continued to entice him to hearken to her. And Zelicah said unto Joseph, how long will you remain in this house? But hearken out to my voice, and I will bring you out of this house. So basically, she tells him, if you sleep with me, I can get you out of jail. And Joseph answered her, saying, it is better for me to remain in this house than to hearken to your words, to sin against Yahweh. Woo! And she said to him, if you will not perform my wish, I will pluck out your eyes, add fetters to your feet, and will deliver you into the hands of them whom you did not know before.
Joseph said, it is better for me to be in this jail than to sin against my Elohim.
And then Joseph answered her and said, behold, the Yahweh of the whole The Elohim of the whole earth is able to deliver me from all that you can do unto me. For he opens the eyes of the blind and loosens those that are bound and preserves all strangers who are unacquainted with the land. And when Zelicah was unable to persuade Joseph to hearken to her, she left off going to entice him, and Joseph was still confined in the house of confinement.
And we can stop right there. We all know the story of Joseph. Joseph spent 12 years in that prison, and then he ends up being able to break down the dream of the Pharaoh, and he ended up being the second highest over Egypt. And when you read the book of Jasher, what happens when Pharaoh dies with Joseph?
Joseph becoming a man.
Joseph actually becomes Pharaoh. See, like I said, in the book of Jasher and the book of Apocrypha, it actually goes more in depth into the story, into these stories.
It says when he died, he basically told his son to allow Joseph to rule Egypt, and so his son did as his father stated, and he did everything that Joseph told him to do.
So Joseph was basically the Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. Started out a slave and became king. Mm-hmm. All things working towards the good. And we know that in those times and in those days, and we know about him being able to save his father's house and his brothers who sold him into slavery during the famine, during the time of famine. We know about all of that if you study the word. All of that looked like it was a bad thing happened to him. Elohim, who foresees and foreknows, allowed it because he knew that he had a greater purpose in it. There was a greater purpose of it. Who is going through something right now and all you've been focusing on is the negative? I'm here to tell you that if you live for Elohim and you've given your life to Elohim through the blood sacrifice of Yeshua, Yahweh Shai, Yahusha HaMashiach, the Christ, that all things are working towards your good. And you got to stop looking at the negative and start looking for the greater purpose. And even if you can't see the greater purpose, you have to trust that there is one, because all things are working towards the good. 828 is a lifestyle. And if you embrace it every day, you'll begin to look at the things that occur to you different. I'm in prison, but somehow this is working towards my good. If he wouldn't have been in prison, he wouldn't have been able to have anticipate the dream, because the guy that got out was able to say, hey, I know a guy, because he anticipated those other prisoners' dream, or he interpreted the other prisoner's dream. And it was once that the one got out, he was able to tell about Joseph, which sprang him into the position that he ended up being in. Elohim is always looking out for his people. He foresees and foreknows what we never see. And it was, think about Joseph doing everything right, but still had to go to prison for 12 years. Very powerful. Some of us haven't been nowhere near prison, and we still can't do right by the Lord. Some of us have never been in that form of slavery, yet you still whining all the time to the Lord. So unappreciative of all the blessings and all the things that he bestows upon you, because you have a worldly mindset, and the world has taught you to be ungrateful. It is time for us to truly live for Elohim in these last days. And before we end this, I have to read Proverbs. We're going to turn to the book of Proverbs. We saw how Zelicah was. We started this talking about the type of spirit that the enemy is pushing upon our women and in these days. we're going to turn into Proverbs 7, beginning at verse 5. And remember, this is Solomon teaching, and Solomon was raised, of course, he was the son of David, so he was raised Hebrew and proper. And we know he was one of the wisest to sit upon the throne. This is Solomon teaching his sons, or writing in the Proverbs, on the ways of the Lord. Yeah. And if you listen to what he's saying, he's telling his son to be Joseph.
Warning against the adulterous woman.
Warning against the adulterous woman. Verse 5.
They will keep you from the adulterous woman and from the wayward woman with her seductive words.
Seductive words. How many seductive words did Zelicah push on Joseph? Constantly. It went from, I'll do something great for you, to threatening him. I'll kill you if you don't do it. Or bribery. She did everything in her power to try to entice him. Verse 10 and 11.
Then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute and with crafty intent. She is unruly and defiant. Her feet never stay home.
This describes when it says she put on her princely garments. Just think about what the type of clothing that most women wear today.
And it makes me think of all those outfits that you see on every celebrity's page, every female's page, where they have those bodycon type dress and every side is cut out, and she literally in there in panties, and everyone think that's cool. Like, you literally a mama. Exactly. You somebody mama, and you walking around with just panties on, your hips out, your crotch is showing, and most of the time you can't even wear panties with most of these dresses because they're so high cut that you don't see the panties.
And see, this is what is being pushed on our women so much that they don't even.
Prostitute wore.
Exactly.
Prostitutes wearing the least amount of clothing as possible.
It's
they're trying to seduce you.
Seductive
they want you
clothing.
To see their assets, their breasts, their booty.
This has become the norm in our society. Yeah. It's so bad that I was on Instagram and I saw a young mother on Mother's Day standing in the hot tub. The child was in the hot tub. And she's doing this little seductive dance in, I guess it almost looked like a bathing suit, but I'm like, you don't even realize it's normal. Pure Satanism has become normal in our society. She didn't know. She had no clue because she's so consumed by what she sees on her gram every day, what she sees from the celebrity music artists, what she sees on the television and in the movies. This is what we are becoming. This is why it's so important to guard your eyes and ears, because they're the windows to the soul. This is why it's so important for us to be peculiar. James 4:4 says, friendship with the world is enmity against Yahweh or Elohim. This is what's going on in our society. And those of us who call ourselves believers, we are supposed to be representing the way, not following the world. 16 and 19.
Proverbs. 16 through 19?
Yeah, 16 through 19.
I have covered my head with colored linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink deeply of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. My husband is not home. He is gone on a long journey.
It stuck out to me that she said she got the linens from Egypt. And we're talking about Zelicah. And when you study that society, it was a polytheistic society. It was a very satanic society. Osiris, god of the underworld, is also Lucifer, the light bearer. Or this is where all this different worship came from. And this is what's going on now. And that came because all Egypt did was take on the same gods from Mesopotamia or Babylonia that was worshiping the fallen angels. which we learned in Enoch, where this stuff originated from, to pass down to by the time it gets to the story of Zelika and Joseph in Egypt. That's all that they were worshiping, and so they were doing the same as the days of Noah. And now you look at our time, it says warning against the adulterous woman. We live in an adulterous society. The whole society is full of this stuff. 21 through 27.
With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once he followed her, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death.
How many times have I heard in my lifetime, dear friends of mine, I've heard so many stories of uh, guys being caught in a woman's house when the husband or boyfriend comes home and one of the others killed. I know I can count a few stories on hand, or how many times we've seen one guy kill another guy over this very same thing. He slept with my wife, or he slept with my girl, or and it goes so much deeper than that. The spiritual things that we partake in, and if there was a lens, if we could put on glasses and it showed you the type of spirits you were carrying just from who you were dealing with and who you were sleeping with and what you were watching and what you were listening to, man, it will freak some of us out. As children of Elohim, servants of the kingdom, representations of his kingdom, representation of the way, through Yahshua, Yahawashai, Yahusha HaMashiach, who you call Jesus, some of you. We're to be in this world but not of it. Today is the day that we begin to represent the kingdom in everything that we do. And come out of the world and be peculiar. Got anything to add? Well, that's our lesson for today. We will be chiming in every Wednesday with a new study. This is the first one. Hit that subscribe button and subscribe whether you're watching this on the Moonie music page or the Judah United. If you on Judah United, go subscribe to the Moonie music page as well. Hit that like button and share, comment. Thank you. If you would like to leave a love offering, the information will be in the description. Anything else to add, babe?
Nope. Thank you for joining us, and hope you have a blessed and peaceful and joyful remainder of the week. Shalom.
Shalom.